It's Thursday, March 5th, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we'll be covering on today's episode. Big shocker, more companies are backing out of large conventions due to the threat of coronavirus. However, now Airbnb and airlines are making statements regarding a decline in travel. We'll also be joined by Matt Bergendahl, the Overwatch program manager at StackUp, who'll discuss the use of video games by military service members to help alleviate stress and boost mental health after deployment. And speaking of gaming, we'll have Lisa Marie Segarra on to update us on gaming news, the 3-year anniversary of the Switch, and the 20-year anniversary of PlayStation 2. I'll still beat anyone in Twisted Metal. And along the gaming theme, did you know that card games are a $12 billion industry? We'll have Michael Slaughter, president of the United States Playing Card Company, on talking about the state of card games and the advancements in cardistry. What does the term cardistry mean? Well, you'll find out that and a whole lot more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All while broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, 2 different mobile apps, a smart television app, and at digitaltrends.com/live. So wherever you are, you can join in the conversations that we get to have about tech. And let's get it going right now. I'm Greg Nibbler here with Nick Moke. Hello, Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning. A lot just was talked about right there, and we have a lot to talk about right now.
Let's wade in.
Let's just do it. I mean, and unfortunately, there is no denying it. We have to talk about coronavirus because it's the most trending story no matter what industry you're in. We happen to be in tech, and it's certainly the trending one for us too. And kind of the updates that I wanted to bring you on this right now, some more companies backing out of conventions, both Netflix and Apple, over the last 24 hours, announcing that they are backing out of South by Southwest. And this kind of continues on with a number of different companies, including Facebook, Twitter, Vivo, Amazon, Mashable, TikTok, and several others that have already said that they are backing out of South by Southwest as well. However, it's still going on. As of right now, South by Southwest is still going to happen, and they said that they aren't going to cancel it, but this stuff changes by the hour, so we'll have to see from there. But going from that, I think some of the other big things today are talking about the travel industry, and Airbnb is now making some changes to their policies in association with cancellations, just because this travel, I mean, so many people are having all of their travel plans completely screwed up because of this. I mean, I want to ask you, Nick, getting your opinion on this, just with coronavirus and how you've seen it affect things from your position in tech. I mean, what are you seeing with this right now?
I mean, I think all the events that our industry relies upon are falling apart. I think that's true in every industry. We read an article the other day about how auto shows even, the Geneva Auto Show was canceled. And we're wondering at this point, will auto shows even continue to exist, and not just this once, I mean, it was canceled, but in the future, if this actually goes well, where we cancel it and have an online-only auto show, do we need them in the future? This is kind of a pilot program that nobody intended to have for whether these shows actually need to exist. I wouldn't be surprised if some of them don't spring back.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a kind of a good point about that too. I mean, talking about like Google I/O getting canceled and all these other ones, I mean, the products still have to be announced. They've still made these things. They still have to do that.
Exactly.
Moving to this all online streaming, essentially, version of it without that person-to-person side of it. I mean, asking you, as an editor, not getting contact with the actual devices, would that be detrimental to your job in covering these things?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, we saw that with Mobile World Congress, right? We saw a lot of devices that normally we'd be able to actually be at a trade show and handle in person and give you a first-person account of. We didn't have all that reporting because we didn't have all those devices in hand. And we can kind of counteract that. I mean, those companies can send those devices out. We'll still get hands-on with them, but it's not the same. It'll be reported in a different way. And speaking for an auto show, I mean, that's even harder to do, right? They can't ship cars around. Like, they had them all centrally in one place. So that aspect of the reporting will be missed. So it'll be interesting. There are some things that can't be replicated outside of a trade show, but the news announcements can. And if what they're looking for is just press and they're still able to get enough of it without actually putting on a show, will they invest? Some of these shows, it costs a company like $10 million to participate in a show.
Yeah.
The cost of putting together a booth, getting the vehicles out there, getting the staff, food, transportation, all of that stuff. So even if it's not quite as good as a trade show, I have to wonder if some companies will see how things go with how well things go without a trade show and say, maybe we don't need to do that after all.
Right. Yeah. Once they start seeing that off of their budget, and realizing
Yes.
they're not spending that much money on that, maybe just investing in live streaming. Hi, thanks for tuning in here. Digital Trends ahead of the curve. But yeah, that's definitely something that's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Absolutely.
And this is just the start too. I mean, we still have. I just saw some events getting canceled already for July. There was one yesterday for an event that's being canceled in July, and then you have to start looking at the Olympics. I mean, going out to IFA or more Apple events, in September. I mean, how it's all going to shake out, we really don't know, and that's why it's constantly updated news we're trying to bring you. The one other thing too with the airlines, United announcing that they're going to be cutting by 10% their U.S. and Canadian flights in April, so just dropping a number of their flights, and then 20% for their international schedule, just because travel is screwed up. People aren't traveling unless they really need to, or unless they have vacations booked, at least not as much as they were. And it's just all these like far-reaching issues that happen because of this. It's hard to really predict what's going to go on.
Yeah, I got an email from Alaska Airlines yesterday that was basically for the next year they're going to waive their cancellation fees because they're trying to get people to not put off their trips. Clearly, they're seeing a decline in booking, so they're trying to do whatever they can to get people, hey, it's still okay to travel, go out there, book your tickets. If you need to change them or cancel them, they're waiving the fee. So
I think it's a good
companies
policy.
are doing what they can. I think it's a smart move.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, because that would definitely, with something as unpredictable as this, book something 2 months out even, you don't know what it's going to be in 2 months.
Yeah,
but
it gives people some peace of mind.
Yeah, I like that policy. Well, we'll have to see if other ones follow suit, but that's just what we have right there. And again, that's just a real minuscule update on what we know about this. We've got lots of articles at digitaltrends.com for you to follow up on as far as the tech industry and even beyond that and how it's affecting things, so you can follow up right there. Moving on, though, let's talk about some other trending news, and this comes from Twitter, who is constantly lately testing out new features to try to compete in the social media landscape. And now they've been running a test, and this was in Brazil, for something they're calling fleets, which is, I guess, supposed to mean like a fleeting moment. So it's a tweet that follows along the line of like a Facebook story, Snapchat, Instagram stories, but Facebook also doing this, where it's something that'll pop up for 24 hours and then disappear. So it's a tweet that you could post. It would be in association with your profile picture, so very similar to Instagram and Facebook, but it would pop up there for 24 hours and then disappear. I don't know if Twitter needs something like this. How do you feel about Twitter? I mean, was this something that you would use?
I mean, it's kind of clear what they're reacting to, right? We've seen so many people just be crucified alive for things that they wrote 5, 10 years ago. And so people are, Twitter themselves said that they were reacting to people telling them that they don't post on Twitter for that reason. They're afraid of what will happen in the future. So it makes sense why they rolled this out. I don't know if it provides any real protection. If you're a celebrity and you say something dumb, 24 hours is a really long period for someone to screenshot it and hold you accountable for it. I guess, granted, if you're not a celebrity, probably no one is going through and saving everything in your fleet feed.
Right.
So maybe it does provide some measure of protection for people that are sort of off the public radar, but I don't know. It almost seems like what's needed more is kind of a societal change where we don't crucify people for things that they said a decade ago.
Yeah.
But obviously Twitter can't change that, so they're doing their best with fleets.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. You're right. They're just talking about how people can get crucified for things posted years ago, and that is just kind of the culture that it is right now when it comes to that. So whether this is going to change though, because that's the thing. Like you said, screen capping things. So somebody who is not in the public eye, I suppose, they'll get away with saying whatever they want to say. Also just, try to say terrible things. But, jokes can be taken the wrong way or anything else. And we've all made mistakes. So what I can say is it's an interesting move, but I don't know if this is going to get a whole bunch of people to come back to Twitter and just be like, oh, cool, now I can post that thing I want to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if they're doing this pilot in Brazil. We'll have to see if they actually roll this out globally. We'd have to presume that if they do, that actually had some effect in Brazil.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. This is a few different things they're testing. I still just want an edit button. Just give me an ad. I don't need it to be long, but I've got big thumbs and I misspell things sometimes if I'm trying to type something out really quick. And it's just like, give me 60 seconds. Give me 60 seconds, that's it, where I can edit that thing, so I don't have to delete it and retweet again. That's all I want, Twitter. That's it. But we'll have to see how this goes. So that's fleets, and again, this is part of a number of different things that they're testing out right now. And so it kind of depends on where you're at, whether you get to see the tests. But if it's successful, then they'll start trying out other places. So we'll have to see how fleets works out with that. Continuing on here with trending news, this one, to me, seems like it's something that's eventually going to be a movie. and it has to do with a massive lawsuit settlement that came through for Anthony Lewandowski. Now, if you don't know who he is, he used to work for Google, for Waymo, essentially, so their self-driving section back in the day. He left that company, started his own company called Otto, which then was purchased by Uber. Now, during all that, and this is years these allegations have been going on, the allegations were that he stole a bunch of proprietary information and trade secrets and documents and even hard drives from Google and then eventually just sold them to Uber. So this lawsuit that finally came through and settled yesterday, as far as what was determined was that he was going to be fined $179 million personally. And of course, as Jeremy Kaplan, who wrote in our article, Lewandowski promptly declared bankruptcy. So immediately declared bankruptcy. And this story is just so kind of crazy what's going on with it, and just reminds you, like, this corporate espionage stuff, it happens all the time.
Oh, I totally agree with you, though. This will make a great movie someday. As I've been following the saga, it kind of reminds me of Office Space, actually, a little bit, where you have a brilliant engineer who's terrible at crime, like does not know the basics of crime. I think at one point, his nanny actually testified against him and said that he came home with a bucket of circuit boards and lenses and the CEO of Uber while she was there. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
No.
It's definite movie material.
Oh, it's gotta be. I mean, I think maybe Coen Brothers, maybe they could do this. But yeah, I mean, I think the Office Space comparison, that's great. How do you launder money? But yeah, it's just kind of crazy just what's going on with this. And ultimately, also Uber has to give Waymo a substantial amount as well. I think it was something like $245 million along those lines in restitution for that. But it's something where this guy, really was part of a lot of major companies with this, but allegedly, 14,000 documents that he took, a bucket of hard drives and circuit boards. I mean, it's just crazy what's going down with this. And this is just the start of it. Of course, he filed for bankruptcy, but we'll have to see where it all shakes out. But it's just fascinating.
Yeah, I think the amounts involved in this, too, really speak to the value of the technology that we're talking about. I mean, the autonomous driving technology, these companies are competing to whoever cracks the code is going to license this to automakers for likely billions of dollars, right?
Yep.
So this is a high-stakes game.
Oh yeah,
between Uber, Uber and Waymo and all these companies that are developing this technology. I mean, whoever gets there first and can license it, there are billions of dollars on the line. And I think the amount that this guy was fined really speaks to that.
Yeah. I've just read some report saying that it could potentially end up being $1 trillion industry just with autonomous. Everything that you could do with that kind of tech once you have it. Yeah, because that is, I mean, you're striking gold.
Yeah.
Better than gold, if you crack that code and can start licensing that out. There's also talk that, and this is a part of the other thing too that's going to make good for the movie, is that he may have been trying to pay somebody at Tesla to get secrets as well. So who knows where it all shakes out. It's fascinating stuff. I know we've got one more here, and I know we need to get to a break because we've got a packed show with a lot of stuff. But something else to bring up too, Google Stadia is trying to rectify some of the issues with their rollout of that platform. So apparently 4K gaming is now rolling out to browsers to pretty much everybody, which is pretty big. That means streaming 4K. It's still a little bit dodgy according to some of the reports that we've seen, but it is actually there. And that's something that's pretty big. It's something they advertised a lot beforehand, but didn't really deliver on. And they also are going to start upping how many original games that they're making by poaching the former head of the God of War. So they've got him now on board to create more original gaming. I think it's a good move. It seems a little late to me.
Yeah, I'm also kind of curious. I mean, are gamers demanding Stadia games, or do they just want more normal games on there?
Yeah.
I don't really know that there's that much demand for games that are specific to this service. I'm also curious about, and I really want to try this out personally, what kind of connection do you need for 4K gaming? Because when Matt Smith tried just the ordinary 1080p version of Google Stadia, I mean, he really had to have a speedy connection just to make that sort of smooth and playable. So if you ratchet everything up to 4K,
yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to find that their home internet connection is not up to snuff for this.
Yeah, Google is saying a 35 megabits per second.
Which sounds very conservative, or very optimistic to me, I should say.
I agree. I mean, and how much data is it going to eat up just overall? I mean,
If you have a data cap, I think 4K
it's gone.
Game streaming is off the table.
It's gone. But that's what's going on with that, and we've got updates on that at digitaltrends.com. We'll be talking more about gaming actually quite a bit on today's show. We've got some great interviews, and Lisa Marie Segar, our gaming editor, is going to join us to talk about that. But I know we need to get to a break because we've got an action-packed show as usual. We've got Jess Serba, who's coming up here in just a minute. But before we do that, we do have this. Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day. Yes, you need this. It's our product of the day. Today it is the Anova Precision Cooker Sous Vide, and this is the 1,000-watt version. So here's what sous vide is. If you've never done it, basically it's a different way to cook your food. You never have to over or undercook your food again. So you've probably heard a lot about sous vide. This is something that can allow you to do that at home. It's $174 right now. And some of the key features too of this, like I said, it's a 1,000-watt version. It's Wi-Fi connected, so you can actually connect to the Wi-Fi. That's something that's really important. When it comes to this, you can monitor it with your phone. You can do any kind of temperature range from 0 degrees Celsius to 92. That's 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 197. You can use, chicken, fish, vegetables, basically anything you can think of can be cooked with this. And when you try sous vide, you'll understand what it is because it just tastes so much better. I mean, you can cook steaks with it, take it out, and then sear it afterward, eggs. I mean, anything that you want to do. It's really pretty amazing. And with this extra power, it can heat up a lot faster. So that's why this one's a pretty good version right here. So this is the Anova Precision Cooker. It's normally $199. Right now, $174. So pick one up. That is your product of the day. Okay, there we go. So every day we've got a different product of the day for you because we want to showcase some of these. All right, I know we need to get to a break. Nick, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
As usual, always fun here, and thank you to everybody who's joining us here on Digital Trends Live. We appreciate it. Coming up next, we've got TBD, so stick around back here in a minute after Digital Trends Live. After this commercial. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button. It is now time for another edition of TBD, and Adrian Warner is gone today, but nonetheless, we have Jess Serba here. Hello, Jess.
Hello, Gregory. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Good. Excellent. That's
Yeah.
good to hear. So
Yeah.
TBD, what are we talking about?
TBD. Well, today we have Tube Bows Down.
Tube. Wait, I'm sorry. What was it again?
So as we all know, TBD is a weekly segment where we discuss the intersection of pop culture and technology. So yeah, today we're calling this Tube Bows Down.
Tube bows down. All right.
Would you like to know more?
Yes, I would, please.
Okay, well, first of all, as you know, TBD, it would not be TBD without brunch. So
Yes. This is true. This is one of the staples
this is
of
a
this
staple.
segment.
Yeah.
And what do we have here?
Take a sip and find out, Gregory. Cheers.
Cheers.
You're good. You're good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Actually, yeah. Okay.
So today we have a very complex cocktail. It's a mango White Claw.
I was gonna say it tastes very mango-y. All right, mango White Claws. We're going all out class on today's show. Okay, perfect. This is a good way. Good thing there's only an hour of show left after this. All right.
Cool today. All right. So this week, the New York Times published an article about YouTube's efforts
Yes.
to control the spread of conspiracy theories on its platform.
Excellent.
So the crux of this whole thing is that it's actually YouTube's like watch next algorithm that is a huge driving force behind all of these views getting all of these videos getting lots of views, right?
Yeah.
So YouTube said they were going to try and fix it. A study was done by UC Berkeley, and in the year since YouTube said that they would do their best to control the spread of misinformation, it does recommend conspiracy theories less.
Really?
So
Okay.
that's great, right? So basically, in fact, in June, YouTube said the amount of people spent watching such videos from its recommendations had actually dropped by 50%.
Okay. What
So-
if you seek them out sometimes, like
Yes.
the videos that I watch?
Well,
Anyway,
there we go. So really fast, the researchers say it's like uneven though.
Okay.
So while they found that YouTube has almost eliminated like some particular theories, like the Earth is flat, it's actually other theories have flourished in its place.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no shortage of conspiracy theories.
Well, exactly. So the researchers are alleging like that YouTube is either allowing or eliminating particular theories based on its recommendations. Which is interesting. So an interesting data point on the recommendations, the company has said its recommendations, now go with me here, drive over 70% of the more than 1 billion hours people spend watching videos every day.
70% of it is
70%
driven
of
by
1
YouTube
billion.
recommendations, where it's
Yes.
like you might like this, but
Exactly.
Just brings up the next one. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a huge statistic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure everything goes back and forth. There's definitely like things on each side, but it does raise a lot of questions, such
Yeah.
as like, how do you confirm conspiracy?
Right.
Right. It's subjective.
Right. What's
In
right or
certain
not?
cases.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Earth is flat. I mean, we all know that. There's, videos to determine that. Chemtrails. But yeah. So is this like an actual person who's adjusting the algorithm to try to figure this out? I mean, that just seems so complex.
Yeah, I mean, they don't
Trying to
really
determine that.
don't necessarily know,
Yeah, they
right?
don't tell you, yeah.
It's machine learning.
Oh, by the way, that guy they just showed, he's crazy.
Crazy.
Anyway.
So that, and then like, of course, the age-old question, like, does this conflict with like freedom of speech?
Right, and that is definitely one of those issues, because I know you see that pop up a lot, where the people are like, "No, you can't. It's my opinion."
Right,
You know?
exactly,
Yeah,
and, like-
but it's also a private platform. It's not really freedom of speech.
That
Nobody's saying
is
you can't
key.
say it.
That's key, right?
Yeah.
So this made me think, like, what, Greg, is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Oh, I have fallen down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole a few times. But I mean, thinking about that, there's a couple of them that I still find fascinating. One of them is Avril Lavigne. This is of all things that I would bring up on today's show. If you've
Can
never
you tell me more?
If you've never heard this one, there's a conspiracy theory that Avril Lavigne died in like the early 2000s, and that who you see when she performs, and yes, she apparently still performs, is a replacement that the record label concocted that looks exactly like her. And her name's like Melissa or Michelle or something. And there's whole Reddit pages devoted to this, where they point out little things in the video and like previous ones, like, see, that's not Avril Lavigne.
Oh, yeah, like
this,
that.
like this. It's-
Well, they're kind of, I mean, she could have just gotten work done, but.
I mean, well, she probably did just get work done. I mean, I don't
like-
believe that is.
I'm like, well, it's Melissa.
An Avril, yeah, that's clearly Melissa. But that one is really funny.
Gosh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that one too. One of my favorites is like Hollow Earth, just because I like
Oh,
wish
yeah.
that were true.
Oh, I
like
know.
whole civilizations inside the Earth, a sun inside the Earth. Like, sign me up, kind of. I'm interested.
It's always a story of like some guy heard about some guy who was a researcher who found a
Who actually
hole in the
flew into
jungle.
the hole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
100%. Exactly. I bet Caleb's favorite is 5G.
Oh, 5G is great. 5G is the new chemtrails.
5G is the new
That's
chemtrail.
really taken the place of that. Yeah, just watch any of our videos online, any 5G video, and
out the
you'll know what
comments.
we're talking about. Yeah, yeah. And now we're probably going to get comments on that. Anyway, clearly I do fall down this. I'm probably a part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, same,
Yeah.
clearly.
All right, so they're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
Okay,
we'll
but
see what happens.
definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I know also as part of TBD every week, we have your Kickstop.
We do. We delve into the wild world of crowdfunding. And today we bring you an interesting product. It's called Noir, and they refer to it as a discrete security camera and USB charger. So
Anytime you put discreet on something, sorry, I want to interrupt. What
no,
is,
no.
what
I
is
mean,
this?
what else can you say about this? It's like it charges. It's a secret camera.
What, so wait, I'm sorry, it's a camera within like a charging dock?
Yeah, exactly. Like you plug it into the wall. There it is, right there.
There is no good reason to have that
Yeah.
in your house. Okay, so this is
I mean,
so it's a
you-
tiny camera hidden in there, so nobody would know it's there.
Yeah. So I mean, and like the things that they say on the site are like great, like supervise your employees when out of the office.
Oh,
Like
yeah. Now I'm looking around
discreetly
to see.
record a conversation, and then they're like,
Discreetly record a conversation. This
and
is
they're like,
messed up.
It's so discreet and small. You can leave one in every room.
Oh, see, and this is the thing. You know, it's going to be somebody who gets one of these, like shows up to somebody's house for a party. Could I plug this? Can I charge my phone? Could I put this in
your
bathroom? I'm
bedroom?
just going to put it in your bathroom to charge for a while. Oops, I forgot my charger. Like, there's something just really messed up.
I mean, it's creepy. I don't
Yeah.
know. They said that it has like government quality surveillance.
What is government quality surveillance
Yeah,
mean?
it's. I mean, clear picture. I guess.
Okay, so if you want
In
to
the
peep.
dark, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and let you know I'm kickstopping this
You're
one.
kicking. Okay, you're kickstopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably have some like funny fun, but I don't trust people with it.
I don't know what. Yeah, I can't see of any real good reason to have this one.
No.
Around. Okay, I agree with that. Now I'm looking all around the room at every outlet to make sure
Yeah.
there's not one here.
I don't
in this
trust
room,
anyone, honestly.
Minus the 3 cameras, you know, and all that stuff. But all right, so Kickstop it. Well, Jess, thank you.
Thank
so
you,
much.
Greg. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, and I
I'll
believe
leave you with some Charlie Cam footage.
Oh, Charlie Cam.
Yeah.
Oh, there's
look at that
Charlie
loaf.
Cam. Well, Adrian will be back here, I believe, next week.
I know. They're doing this right now, actually. I
This is
believe.
live. This is live
This is
right now.
live.
Live right now.
The hills of Ireland.
Yep, that's where Charlie. You never know where Charlie roams. All right. Well, we have a lot coming up, and I do want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us here live on the show. And we have so many cool things to talk about. And coming up next, I'm actually really excited about our next guest to talk about this platform that they have. And it's basically to help service members utilizing gaming. And we're going to have Matt Bergendahl from StackUp on to talk about a partnership that they have and different ways that video games can actually unite and really make lives a lot better. It's really cool. We're going to discuss that next. Stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us. Wherever you are, hit that subscribe button. It's a great way to share the show and get notified when we do go live. And we like to talk about all kinds of different technology, including tech for change, tech for good, tech that can help people out. And we're talking about gaming right now with that aspect and different ways that it can unite people, help alleviate even mental health issues. And there's a lot to get into to discuss with this. To do so, to start off, though, we've got Matt Bergendahl here, who's the Overwatch Program Manager for StackUp. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm really excited to talk about what you're doing and what this new partnership is, but I want to give everybody just kind of a bit of context. If you can talk to us about StackUp and a little bit of your history involved and how this got formed and why it got formed.
Absolutely. So StackUp is a veteran and active duty organization that uses mental health as kind of like the cornerstone of the work that we do. Each one of the pillars, the 4 pillars of our programs, have mental health involvement, with the STOP program being the most direct. STOP itself kind of came out of necessity. We started having members who were feeling comfortable in the community, and they started talking about some of the issues that were going on in their lives, some of their challenges. And we quickly realized that this is a need that needs to be filled. So we needed to make sure that we did it in the best way possible. So I was approached. I'm actually a licensed mental health clinician. I used to work for the VA for a while. And they asked me to develop this program in terms of training and how we implement it. And so we wanted to make sure that if there was a veteran or an active duty member who was needing assistance, they were going to have highly trained staff members, volunteers, who would be able to help them out and no matter where they are at in their lives, where they're at geographically, we would be able to make sure that we deliver a very sound service.
I mean, and mental health, mental health services is just so important for,
Right.
a number of reasons, but particularly with veterans and active duty. I mean, the things that people encounter, it's just imperative. And looking at it from this angle, I guess, to get a little more context with the video game side of things and just gaming side of things, I know there's some pretty amazing statistics that has to do with how many active duty military members are using video games and playing video games, and how important is that? Like, can you talk a bit about that experience?
I guess I'll give you a personal experience. When I was in Iraq, I had my PlayStation 2 with me, and so when I wasn't out there in a foxhole or an LPOP, that's an observation post. I was out there. There were long 14-hour days. When I got off duty, I was in my tent and I was playing Final Fantasy. It was just a way for us to unwind, and that's been a thing ever since consoles have been out. Most of the active duty personnel that we send these crates to are using it for the exact same reason. It's like a therapeutic intervention. It allows them to unwind, but just as important is that it allows them to be socially connected. So let's say you are a veteran living out here in Washington. Well, your best friend lives out there in South Dakota. You obviously don't get to see them as much as you used to, so you play an online game. And so you can maintain that social connectivity, which is very important when it comes to stemming the whole issue with veteran and active duty suicide, is that social connectedness model.
I mean, I can imagine going from something like the military and understanding what you've gone through, but also that connection that you have with all of your fellow members that you're with. I mean, that's
Right.
your family when you're there, and then to come back and be disconnected. This sounds like a great way to bring that connection back. You mentioned the crates. Can we talk just a little bit about that to give everybody an understanding of what those are that you send out?
Absolutely. Supply crates. What we do is they're going to be sent out to 2 different folks. It's going to be either active duty personnel. Most of them are going to be deployed out there in the Middle East, or even around the globe. There's going to be ones that are going to be sent out to veterans who are, for the most case, they're kind of disconnected, either through their own disabilities, or they just don't necessarily have the financial means to be able to afford a console with games. And so we provide them with that capability, either the active duty members deployed or the veterans who are living at home, so that they can start again rebuilding that connection with others. I mean, and we encourage that throughout StackUp all the time. We always asking those veterans and active duty personnel, hey, now that you got your console, why don't you come hang out with us and play a few games?
What are some of the most popular games that they're playing?
Oh my gosh! Well, Call of Duty. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about that. Call of Duty. I would say Apex is still pretty popular. The new Battlefield. There's just quite a few. And it's interesting. It's not all shooting games. There are still other games out there that are still well received. Division 2 is another one that's quite popular. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, and talking about this partnership too, I want to get into this and discuss this
Right.
new announcement that you have and different ways to actually help fund more services.
Yes, this is. I can't think of any other gaming developer who have done this before in the history of the history. Wargaming is basically saying it's not enough to give you some money. We want to make it so that our gamers who play any of the war gamings like World of Warships, they have a high percentage of people playing who are veterans or active duty. And we want to be able to allow them that if they're under duress while they're playing the game, or they're talking to their playmates and they're starting to experience some issues, give them that opportunity to be dropped directly into our Overwatch program, and they can immediately receive services from my trained staff. So this is new territory, and it's very, very exciting. They're basically going to do it. They're supporting us financially with two different types of packages. One is the Lifeline, which is $12. These are skins and also power-ups within the game. And then the Life Ring, which is $30. And they all go directly towards the STOP program and building it out. So right now we're shooting for at least $100,000. That will get us the capability of hiring some more overnight staff. And we'll see how far it goes. We're very, very excited. And we're really hoping that this is going to have a positive reach out to others and encourage other gaming companies to take a better look at mental health, because there is definitely a lot of studies going on as far as the benefits of gaming and mental health.
And to have access directly like that, 24 hours a day, you're feeling something and you can just immediately go into talk to someone. I mean, this is an incredible program. And you mentioned those packages and ways that people can help too. And I want to make sure we direct everyone where they can go, how they can encourage this, and how they can help you.
Well, the best way to do it is word of mouth. There's obviously, if you go to World of Warships, you will see on their page this campaign that just kicked off a couple of days ago. There's going to be more videos coming out there. Get on your social media and help spread the word. If the game itself is not something that's going to catch your eye, you can still obviously make a donation, but you can also share it with others in your community and saying, hey, this is actually a pretty cool thing. This is mental health, and this is a way that we can harness the power of the gaming community and mental health.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here to talk about this. I'll definitely be sharing it myself. I encourage everybody who's watching to share this and check out everything that you're doing. It's great work, and thank you for your service very much. And thanks for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So talking about a great use of technology right there. So again, like you said, go there, share the show, share this segment, share this interview, share their website, let other people know about that. That's actually doing something good for people. So mental health awareness is always important, and this sounds like a great program for that. I know we have more coming up. We need to go to our New York studio. We have Lisa Marie Segar, who's going to be joining us. So Matt did mention PlayStation 2. Well, did you know this is the 20th anniversary of PlayStation 2? So we're going to be talking about that coming up next, and a Switch anniversary, and some more updates in gaming. She'll have it all for us. So stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us here on the show. Share it. Let other people know about it. That's a great way to engage in the conversations we get to have. And right now, we're going to talk about gaming. And to do so, of course, we have Lisa Marie Segarra joining us from New York. And I know there's a lot to talk about with anniversaries today, but inevitably, and it's like every show that we've started for the last week and a half, we have to talk about coronavirus in some way, shape, or form. I'm assuming you do too. Lisa Marie, what do we have to know about that?
Yeah, so late last week, they announced that GDC is not quite canceled, but it is postponed until the summer. There's no set date yet, though, so we're really waiting to see what happens. They were actually going strong even after a lot of companies pulled out. You had Microsoft, EA, a number of others pulling out, saying that they were going to do their own events, or they would have some plans, contingency plans coming out. And even after the county declared a state of emergency that day, GDC organizers said it was still going on. And then the next day, they said, actually, we are postponing until the summer. I think that it just got too much. There really wasn't anyone that was going to be there that was a big player in the space. And it's really unfortunate. I mean, it's a really big event. Not so much for fans. It's not like a PAX or a Comic-Con or even E3, but it is really important for industry leaders. There's a lot of networking that happens between other actual industry folks and the media. You also have a lot of job interviews going on there because everyone is in the same place at the same time, which actually doesn't happen very often in gaming. You know, you see Silicon Valley and they have their own space, but you have people like Rockstar over in New York. You have Sony in California. You've got Bethesda in Maryland. So it is a really fractured space in a lot of ways compared to other industries. So when you lose out on these spaces where you can really focus on what is happening business-wise and less on fan service and announcement, you know, it's just not a great move, unfortunately. And even that said, there are some fan service elements. You know, last year, Stadia was announced. Microsoft has made some Xbox Series X announcements last year, giving a few more details. And there were some big things planned. I know that Xbox has been going strong. So seeing that it was canceled and that these companies are saying we are going to do online-only announcements clearly shows that this year they had a lot to say and now have to find a new way to say it.
I think that's a couple of key things you just said there. I mean, a lot of these companies do seem to be doing that across tech and I'm sure other industries too, like moving to these online announcements. But the lacking of that actual person-to-person relationship building that happens at those things, all that behind-the-scenes stuff between industry leaders and job interviews, I didn't even think about that. Like, that's huge. And the reverberations, like, who knows where that's going to go. But so that's just, you know, one update, one association with that, with coronavirus and GDC. But moving on to some other things, I know that we do have other stuff to talk about. And some anniversaries are happening for a couple of different consoles.
Yeah. So some fun stuff, you know, Switch just had its 3rd anniversary this year on Tuesday. So for that, I wanted to do a list of 3 top 3s for year 3, basically. So I wanted to start with some top Switch games. In number 3, I have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, just because, you know, it is such a classic series for Nintendo, and it was on, actually, a lot of people don't know this, it was on 3DS and Wii U, and more people know about the Wii version, but it hadn't really had its moment since the GameCube in the early aughts, and this was the first time that we really saw the fans rally around together and competitive players, you know, finding a new title to challenge themselves with in a way that they hadn't before, so that was really exciting. In number 2, I have Pokemon Sword and Shield, because for the first time, we have gotten a Pokemon game, a mainline game, not a spin-off, that you can play on a home console on a big TV, which, especially considering where TVs are now, is pretty huge. And it's such a departure for the game series in a really exciting way. And similarly, Breath of the Wild. And just like the other two, you know, they are Nintendo mainstays with really long legacies, but you know, they just stepped it up for the Switch, and Breath of the Wild was so different from any other Legend of Zelda game that we've seen before, with its open world, with its gameplay and combat, and its very different way of storytelling. It was just such a unique way to rebirth the series in a way. And obviously, it was a massive hit. So you got to include those. And for my top 3 moments, I have, similarly, number 3, the Breath of the Wild sequel announcement. They announced that last E3, which was really exciting. And actually a total surprise. Even some journalists like myself that got previews, that was totally unbeknownst to us. Like, it was such a shock. And when you're able to shock both fans and media covering it heavily, that's really special. And it was a great moment. It was just really exciting and something that I know fans wanted to see, and they delivered it. And with that, it was kind of like a Steve Jobs, like one more thing at the end. Really great moment. Number 2, I've got Isabelle being announced as a new character in Smash. It was just such a fun moment, and you really got to see, you know, fans of 2 different games, Animal Crossing and Smash, come together and just get really excited over some cute stuff. And the Switch Lite, which is funny because the Switch Lite can actually switch, but it was Nintendo really going back to its handheld legacy. You know, the 3DS line had been aging, and they kept it going. You know, it had some releases up until like 2 years ago, but it was them saying, we're revamping our handheld line. It's something that they have such a big impact in, going back from their Game Boy games. So it was really exciting for them to make that happen again, while also acknowledging that what they're doing with the Switch is going really well and not deviating too much, but just adding on what they have expertise in. And for 3 things, I still want to see, I have to say Animal Crossing, but that's kind of low on the list because, well, it's coming, and some people are already previewing it. I also want to see some more unique games that aren't Nintendo games. And so if they have a kind of killer app that isn't as Nintendo heavy, even though that's their bread and butter, I think it will really serve them well. They've kind of had that with Witcher 3, but for something that at launch is a big hit, I think would be really exciting. And I have to say, I know that people keep talking about the possibility, but for number 1, I would love to see a Switch Pro model. You know, the Switch is excellent, but with the PS4 and Xbox One, it doesn't quite have the same power and graphics. And I think that with the new consoles coming out, it's a great time to punch it up a bit. I am curious about how Nintendo does that. They are definitely a company that wants to be very consumer friendly, family friendly, so that's why they've had a lot cheaper options, especially at launch. 300 and 200 for the Switch and Switch Lite respectively would mean that that would be a really big departure, but considering how successful the Switch has been with the hardcore gaming market, I think it could be a really good move.
Well, I love that you have all these different moments for the Switch, because it just shows like how big of a game changer it's been over these last 3 years and how popular it's been, how
But
many it's sold.
those are my top 3.
Those
Those
are-
are all 3 lists.
The top 3, yeah.
In year 3.
Top 3 in year 3. And the thing is, with Switch, you know, being such a big seller over this last 3 years and so popular, it's one of those things where
But we do have another anniversary with the PS2, which made me feel super old. It is now 20, which is kind of unbelievable, I have to say. But beyond how old it is, it's amazing to think back about what it was like when it came out and how successful it's been and its history within gaming. It is still the best-selling console of all time, even though the aforementioned Switch is coming up on it. Sold over 155 million units, which is absolutely wild. But I think that the big reason is because they didn't just bill it as a gaming console. It was an all-inclusive entertainment device. You know, it came out right when DVDs were taking off. It also played CDs. So you could really bill it, especially as a gamer, to your family as something that could, be something for the whole family, for the home. So you could go to Blockbuster. Again, this was 20 years ago, and, pick up a DVD, and you could just rent something, take it home, and then, play something in the morning on a Saturday, and then, listen to CDs. I remember listening to a bunch of CDs and using it as like a makeshift stereo because I could play it on my TV. And they really continued that. Sony added Blu-ray support with the PS4 and the PS3 even before that. So they really continued this idea of a, all-encompassing entertainment device, which is funny because you can't do that on the PS4 now. But it was also a pretty solid game machine in and of itself. Besides all of that, it had 32 megabytes of RAM, which was insane. It just did these really incredible, unique things. You had these cool bars on the main menu that would represent your save data, and just really making the interface really intuitive was great. And then they also kept making it literally like a month before the PS4 was announced in May 2013. That just really goes to show how successful it was. They came out with so many versions. It was like slim, and then it was slimmer, and they had so many models just because people kept buying them. It was really successful. And also you can tell just from some of the best-selling games just how big the impact was. You had GTA San Andreas, Gran Turismo 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 were both on there, and God of War. It was such a big game. And basically all of these are still around with the exception of Metal Gear, but Hideo Kojima, who was the creator of those games, is now working on Death Stranding, so they definitely still have an impact, and that all ties from the PS2, so happy birthday to that.
Nice. Well, Lisa Marie Segar, thank you so much for joining us. Always appreciate it. And again, thank you for everything that you're covering there. So check out all of her articles at digitaltrends.com. And I want to say thank you to everybody who's joining us right now. We need to get to a break. We've got, coming up next, speaking of gaming, we've got Michael Slaughter, who is the president of the United States Playing Card Company. We're going to talk about actual cards. So that's coming up next. So stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello, this is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We get to have a lot of conversations about technology here on the show, and all kinds of different industries are included in that. And right now, we've been talking about a lot of gaming, but we're going to talk about cards. Cards in particular, it's a huge industry, and we're going to discuss that right now with Michael Slaughter, who's the president of the United States Playing Card Company. Michael, thank you so much for joining us here.
Oh, appreciate it, Greg. Thanks for having us.
I mentioned that it's such a huge industry, and I didn't realize how big. Can you speak to us just a little bit about, about what United States Playing Card Company actually has, and then on top of that, just the industry as a whole right now?
Yeah, so real quickly, just a little bit about U.S. Playing Card. We've been producing playing cards in the United States since 1867. Still a homegrown business that has outlasted obviously a million trends, radio, television, the internet, and we are continuing to sustain all of the trends that are out there in terms of people are re-engaging our business, people are to some degree trying to undigitize. So our business, we're located in Erlanger, Kentucky. We have 360 employees locally here. We also have a plant in Vitoria, Spain, that serves our European customers. But just a little bit about our business. We'll make well over 100 million decks of playing cards this year. That's more than 5 billion print impressions. We'll ship to over 117 countries. And now that we've been acquired, we're going to reach more consumers around the world globally.
Well, and that's something, just talking about how old it is and talking about surviving all those trends. I mean, that's just a huge thing. I mean, because you think about it, everybody's got a deck of cards. Everybody knows their favorite games that they want to play, and so it's just such a staple. And talking about it going forward now, too, there's a term that was brought up in what you sent over called cardistry. And I wondered if you could explain what that term actually means.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it almost is self-fulfilling in its name, right? The art of cards, and that is people will take these cards, and right now you're going to see a video of one of those cardists, and his name is John Stessel. He is both a cardist and a magician, but it is the manipulation of these cards in such a art form that I attune it to like watching live origami in a cardist or an artist's hands. With playing cards, it's absolutely amazing, the shapes and the what they will create right in front of you with a deck of cards. I mean, it's almost hard to imagine, but it literally is art.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, actually, I wanted to do that. I was never that good, but I tried to show everybody how good I was. I had one trick that I would do that my uncle taught me. That was about all I had, but still, something like that, that's amazing. That's impressive what they were just doing. And looking at that from an art form and, and talking about that growing, I guess, where do you see this transitioning now, and where is U.S. Playing Cards' role in this, re-emergence or maybe just continuing emergence of cardistry?
Yeah, I think for most people, it is very difficult for them to name another brand of playing cards. So while U.S. Playing Card has been synonymous with card play and engaging people, bringing people together, I've once coined the phrase that playing cards were really, truly the original social media, in that it really brought people together. Our role in this is that we produce almost all of the cards that you're seeing these cardists use. There is a certain capability that we have in our production processes that allow them to better manage and the control of these cards.
Sorry, I'm a little mesmerized by the video there myself.
Allows them to do that.
That's just really impressive, just watching that right now and how that's working out. Talking about this, I guess going forward, where, with more people being involved and talking about the industry of cards as well, is it something that evolves along with technology, with anything along those lines, or is this such a staple that it transcends any kind of technological innovation?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you go back, playing cards literally have their origins back to the 11th century. We almost think of the modern era as being the 13th century, when cards became closer or more similar to what we use and play with today. literally transcends everything that's out there. You know, we're just part of the entertainment industry. And that's kind of the way we look at our business. It is, you know, as I mentioned, I mean, we have, I'm sure 100 and something years ago, there was probably somebody that said, boy, this radio thing, it's really going to have an impact on playing cards. This TV thing, it's really going to have an impact on playing cards. Well, people still continue to play with playing cards. And what we have found is they are probably one of the most resilient, if you think about it, and I don't like to think of it as toys, but entertainment devices that man ever invented. And as you can see, the you know, cardistry, this cool trend clearly transcends anything beyond Magic, because it is beyond Magic. It's not a trick, but it's fascinating. As I'm even sitting here watching this video, it's fascinating what people find themselves able to do, and thereby creating new capabilities with those cards.
Well, talking about, you know, something that's so accessible, I guess. Cards are so accessible to people, which is a great way for people to get involved with something like this. And talking about accessibility, looking at social media and how that's kind of changed the landscape of people being able to see more of this. How has that affected cardistry as a whole? And do you see that as kind of like a new springboard for more people to get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. It's become a platform for these artists to be able to share their expression. It's no different than something like YouTube, right? There are tons, if not tens of thousands of YouTube videos, because everyone wants to be able to show their capability and their creativity and their innovation. So as we've seen these platforms innovate, they what's really happened is you've taken this ancient art form, and someone has taken and innovated again with, you know, cardistry and Magic as itself. Magic is growing again. More and more people. I mean, if you just think about America's Got Talent, go back and look at who some of the past winners were. And, you know, a couple of the top talents actually won that and now have shows in Vegas. So, you know, this is a trend for us that we're happy to see it growing again.
Do you practice any of these yourself?
I don't. I am probably the least capable. You would never, ever want to see me do a card trick. I have attempted many. But for me, the art form around cards, I find absolutely fascinating. I often tell people one of the most beautiful pieces of art that I've ever seen is the Ace of Spades in a deck of bicycle playing cards. And part of that reason is, and I've often said, I don't know how it speaks to me, but it represents freedom. And if I look at the inside that ace, there is the Goddess of Liberty that is actually on the Capitol building of the United States. And that art was placed there in 1885 when the bicycle brand was launched. I grew up around that brand, and I guess that's that power of what it symbolizes for me is absolutely just amazing. But I love the art. There's a lot of artists that like to use this form to actually express themselves in terms of creating their own decks of cards. And then we manufacture those for those artists.
That's incredible. Well, it really is something that obviously has stood the test of time and is still just growing even more. So it's really exciting to talk to you about this. And for everybody out there, you know, if they want to go and get themselves a set of cards, where would you recommend I send them to find out more about your company?
You know, I think it's great. A lot of people would be good. Go to bicyclecards.com, right? And the reason you want to go there is if you really enjoy history, you're going to learn a little bit about our company. You're going to learn a lot about cardistry and Magic. So it's just a great way to it's a great starting place.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us here today. Really appreciate you being on the show. It's a lot of fun to talk about this. Now I got to go practice some of those myself to see if I can look cool. I know I won't look as cool as them, but still fun. Thanks for being here.
Greg, I appreciate the time. And when you get that video of yourself creating some card art, I'd love to see it.
Fantastic. All right, I'll work on that. It might take me a while, but thank you so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely appreciate it. Take care.
All right, so that was Michael Sauter from US Playing Cards, just talking about that and just talking about where those are going. Just really, really fun. Now I want to go look up some more of those videos. I know I need to get to a break. We've got more interviews coming up. We've got real news coming up, and we've got some news for you. So stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us. We are live, in case you didn't know, so we appreciate everybody who tunes in. Of course, you can go to digitaltrends.com, hit subscribe on whatever platform you want. All right, let's do this. Let's talk about some news. I got to give you some rapid-fire news here that I think you need to know for today. First one up has to do with Waymo. We've talked about Waymo earlier today and autonomous driving. They're certainly at the forefront of that. They've been running their practices a lot down in Arizona. They've been working on this for years, and now they've released a new version of what they're calling Driver. That's their AI that runs their software. So here's the thing. This new system that they have put up, which this new version of Driver, has increased the range in which their LiDAR and their cameras, which is how they navigate, can see. So now they can see up to distances of 500 meters. And that means it allows its self-driving cars, minivans, and trucks to identify objects, including pedestrians and stop signs, far away. And we're talking about blocks away. It can tell if somebody's opening up a car door, if there's a stop sign, if there's something happening, if there's construction, if there's an obstacle in the road. Things happen when you're driving around. That's really important. And to be able to have that kind of vision, I guess, that far ahead, something we'll expect from autonomous vehicles once they're fully on the road. And now they've been testing this out for a while, utilizing these things, like I said, in Arizona, I believe Tempe, Phoenix, somewhere around there, where you can actually call and get a ride with one. They still have a human driver in there. But this is the kind of thing we need to see. And it also, as great as this is, it reminds us we're still a ways away before we have fully autonomous vehicles on our roads. Now, trucks may be happening sooner than actual cars, because when you're on a freeway, it makes it a little bit simpler to drive around. But there it is, kind of an example of that, where it's on the top of the car. That's something of what you'll probably be seeing at some point. And if you're in Arizona, you'll be seeing that. But of course, other companies are testing out this kind of software as well. Whoever gets there first is going to make a lot of money. That's the case. Whoever can really fine-tune this technology. But it's something that's pretty cool, something you can read about at digitaltrends.com. All right, we've got a couple more news stories here for you. Next one has to do with talking about vehicles along those lines and where we could go with autonomous vehicles. What about tires that regenerate themselves? I want this now. I hate having to deal with car issues, and tires are certainly a nuisance for all of us. Well, Goodyear put out this video, and it's a concept right now, but it's the idea of a self-regenerating tire. So there's an example of it. On top of that, apparently you'd be able to customize the color of these tires. But if something happens with the tread, you actually, it's really weird. This video kind of demonstrates it. You put in kind of a pod into it, a capsule, that will then grow the tread back. Now, combined with AI, again, this is far out in the future, but it's a concept they're working on. This would actually learn your driving style. It would learn the terrain. It can adapt to it on the fly. And if you got a puncture, it would just grow it right back in. You don't need to worry about tire pressure or any of that stuff. I am all for this kind of future. That's something that they're working on, but it's a really interesting use case of technology when you think about different kinds of uses of tech that in different areas and different fields, since everything's kind of converging into one field right now. Utilizing AI, utilizing some kind of a biomaterial. They don't really go into it exactly how it would grow. They just kind of showcase this video. So I don't know how feasible this is, but something like it is pretty cool. It's kind of a liquid gel that they put in there, but pretty cool. You can read more about that at digitaltrends.com. All right, final story. Has to do with something that's coming up here today. So you are watching live right now. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. But coming up in about 20 minutes, NASA is going to be announcing the winner of the naming contest for the Mars 2020 rover. So this is going to be streaming live right here. So whatever platform you're on, hit subscribe right now, and we will bring you to this live. But in kind of celebration of that, they released this video. This is from the rover that is on Mars right now, and is the biggest picture they've ever put together. It's 1,000 different images stitched together for a 1.8 billion pixel Mars panorama. They've got this up where you can zoom in on it. It's showcasing some different mountains actually on Mars, which is it's really cool. It's Mount Sharp. And so this is the Curiosity rover, and the panorama was taken between November 24th to December 1st, 2019. So pretty cool what they did right there. You can see the crater rim there in the background, but that's something you can check out right now at digitaltrends.com too. And again, we'll be bringing you live the Mars rover 2020 naming contest. I already called it. I think it's Tenacity. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that's what they're going to announce in 20 minutes. I don't know that for sure, but that's my bet. So stick around. We'll have that coming up. But right now, we've got another interview coming up as well after this break. So we've got real news, too, on the way. So a lot to talk about, but talking about AI and different utilizations of that and different ways that we can actually heal ourselves using medical biology, medical tech. We've got Naven Narain, who's going to be joining us from Berg. So he's on next. So stick around back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Join us for this week's episode of Trends with Benefits, where we'll be discussing virtual reality. How long until we're all living in a Ready Player One virtual world? Well, we're not quite there yet, but there are still some really fascinating use cases for VR, and I think you'll be surprised about some of the developments of its capabilities. Be sure to tune in for our roundtable discussion and hit subscribe wherever you get podcasts. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. We're going to continue on our conversations about technology, talking about medical technology and different ways that artificial intelligence and other use cases for that kind of technology can help us out. And to do so right now, we've got Naven Narain, who's the CEO, president, and co-founder of Berg. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Hey, Greg. It's great to be on. I appreciate the invite.
I love talking about this kind of thing and different use cases of technology that can help us out. And talking about Berg in particular, being one of the co-founders and the president and the CEO, can you give us just a little bit of a backstory on what you saw that was out there and how you thought that Berg would be able to change some things?
Yeah, well, again, it's great to be on, Greg. And the real opportunity that we saw about 8-9 years ago, Berg is a namesake of Carl Berg, who is one of the co-visionaries of Silicon Valley, and together with Mitch Gray, circa 2010, what we all thought is that there's a massive opportunity to really put at the forefront of how we discover drugs by employing the use of patient-driven biology and Bayesian artificial intelligence. So this is way back when, before AI has become a thing as it has in the past 3 or 4 years ago. I would say so. The real opportunity and need was that drug discovery and development overall is tremendously expensive. Averages about $3 billion to create one drug, and on average it takes about 12 to 14 years. So obviously, in the cases of very serious diseases and aggressive cancers and rare diseases, that's a really long time for patients and families to have to wait. So the real opportunity that we saw is how can we put a process in front of creating better hypotheses, and we saw an opportunity to take live tissue samples and try to understand the depth of the narrative and the story behind those tissue samples in a real population. And to give just a really quick example is if you take 100 patients with a given cancer and 100 patients who are otherwise healthy, and try to understand the areas of the biology that are different between the population of patients who have cancer and not. What our approach is to use AI to bring together all the different types of data. So genetic data, demographic data, clinical data, and help us understand the areas within the biology that serve as new drug targets, that serve as biomarkers, to help us understand how do we create um, two areas within the drug development process that's more precise and more predictable, because that's really the key need in the drug development process.
I mean, you mentioned that $3 billion in 10 to 12 years, which can be, almost a generation of people who would miss
Yes.
out on something. And,
Yes.
and obviously that affects so many different people and it's lives. Lives are at stake with that kind of thing. So shortening that process is tremendous. And you mentioned this different way of utilizing all of this technology to do that, to speed up that process, to lower the cost, which is important as well. When you're doing that, are you running different? I guess I wanted to talk about the technology side of it as well. And not being a
Sure.
medical professional, my terminology may be a
Sure,
little bit
sure.
off. But
No,
are you running
no, it's
like virtual cases of this, where you've got a program that says, okay, if we extend this out for this many years using this drug, this is what would happen? Or how do you actually kind of use that tech to speed up that process?
So what we essentially do is, if we've all, if you imagine the back of an airline magazine that has all the various, routes that the airline's going to, it gives us a picture of the scope and the latitude of the operations of the airline. But it also shows us these really key concentric areas that are, either where the airline's headquartered or it has its hubs. And what Berg is trying to create is a visual map on every patient that shows us where are the key trigger points between the onset of these patients when they're healthy, and the onset of disease when they've either responded or not to a given therapy. So then if you imagine in the hundreds and thousands of patients in the given models that we have, we're stacking these patient maps and we're looking for these differences. So in the case of American Airlines, we know it's headquartered in Dallas and Miami and John F. Kennedy and LAX. So we know that those are areas within the context of the operations of American that really drives that airline. But I always use the example, if you're going from, say Topeka, Kansas to Boise, Idaho, those two areas, you're so focused in on where you start your flight and where you're ending your flight. But if airspace in New York City is very congested and your airline is coming from New York, which has nothing to do with your starting point and your ending point, your flight is affected. And what we think is, biology as a whole is really complex. We have to be, we always say internally that you have to be very humble to do biology, because there's so much that we don't know. And things, oftentimes we look at the things that are very obvious, but what we've found by applying AI and patient biology is oftentimes it's the concentric components that as an aggregate leads to the onset of disease. So it's not always the obvious thing. So what we're looking for is, what are the areas of new biology that sometimes don't really have to do with the big concentric hub, if you will, like the Dallas and the Miami within the American Airlines system. Sometimes it's an area of biology, a metabolite, a lipid, a protein that is oftentimes not so obvious, and that's oftentimes the trigger point that may be a better pathway or a better drug target to develop.
Wow. I mean, and that's just such a great thing to be able to use and utilize. Like you said, AI wasn't around this before, but now you're figuring out different use cases for it, and all of this data that you can gather to sift through it all to find those circumstances. Are there any regulatory obstacles or hurdles that still need to be overcome in order to utilize this kind of software?
So early on, one of the things, as we were building our relationships with large-scale medical schools, the NIH, the Department of Defense, one of the things that I'd say right before the Affordable Care Act was a key concentration on patient privacy. I think that we now have very strict parameters that are secure and validated. So I don't think that obstacle is any longer an issue. I would actually say that in our engagements with the FDA, with other regulatory authorities around the world, we see that the regulatory agencies, especially the FDA, is actually reached out to industry, reached out to academia to say, how do we come up with new models of systems pharmacology? How do we employ systems biology and artificial intelligence to help us understand these diseases more fundamentally? Because oftentimes, Greg, the issue is, take Parkinson's disease or pancreatic cancer, for example. These diseases still pose such a high degree of mystery for us in the pharmaceutical industry to develop these drugs that, I would say internally, time out. Let's try to understand the biology that is governing these disease processes, or understand the pathways, or understand areas that we may be able to develop a biomarker so we can perform, more efficient clinical trials. So first of all, I think the agencies are very focused on that. So we're actually seeing just the opposite. They're not creating obstacles. They're providing an open, very transparent and collaborative environment for industry, academia, and government to really have these conversations. Because look, I wouldn't even say it's the future. It's now. This is real. This is all happening now.
Well, it's really exciting, and it's such a wonderful conversation to have too, and just to see where we're going with all of this. And I want to say thank you so much too for joining us. And I want to direct people also, to take a look at everything that you're doing. And I'm just looking at some of the things at berghealth.com. Really fascinating stuff. And I want to say thank you again so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you, Greg. It was awesome to be on. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right.
Love talking about that stuff, biomedical technology, just where it's going. So berghealth.com, take a look at everything they're doing. And I know we need to hurry because we do have our live broadcast of Mars coming up, or the Mars rover naming, but we need to play real news. So let's go ahead and do this right now. Let's get it rolling. Here it is. It is Aaron and Riley with real news.
Hi, I'm Erin Keeney.
And I'm Riley Wynn.
And this is Real News, the show that helps you decide what movies deserve your money at the box office this weekend. Well, first up, we're talking about The Way Back. It's a new film starring Ben Affleck, who plays a former star athlete, now on the road to redemption.
Affleck plays Jack Cunningham, a guy whose life was once filled with huge promise. He was a basketball superstar in high school with a full-ride scholarship to college. Had a bright life ahead, but then for reasons no one saw coming, he walked away from the game and forfeited his promising future. Now, years later, Jack is in a downward spiral of alcohol addiction that has ruined his marriage and any hopes for a better life.
Yeah, and his alma mater, where he enjoyed his glory days, asks him to come back and coach the basketball team. Well, he rather reluctantly decides to take that job, and that's when we see things turn around. As the team starts to win, Jack starts facing some of his old demons.
Alongside Oscar winner Affleck, the film stars also Janina Gavankar and newcomer Da Vinci, who plays on their team.
Yeah, well, this film is directed by Gavin O'Connor, who teamed up with Affleck for the film The Accountant, and you can see kind of right away the similarities between Affleck's character in this and his real-life journey. Affleck has been really open with his, with his struggles with alcohol addiction, and the director said too it was really easy for him to get into that role, and there were some really raw, vulnerable scenes that they shot, and O'Connor said they even cut some of those out of the film because they were just too real for him. And Affleck even joked, he said, yeah, this part was easy. The role of the addict, trying to get his life back together, easy for him. The difficult part was basketball. Apparently, he is not an athlete. And he said he was very hesitant to get on the basketball court, and he had to learn a lot about the game.
It's really funny that he's not good at basketball because he's rather tall. He's a tall guy. He also did say, though, this role is one that really made him fall in love back with acting. He, I guess, had fallen out of love with his craft. Then also with this movie, I think it's really interesting in the fact that a lot of sports movies focus on the players. This one really focuses on the coach. So I think it's a different look on, different take on sports than we're used to seeing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to see this film. I love films about sports teams, even though I don't have an athletic bone in my body. Well, you can see The Way Back in theaters March 6th. Next up, we have The Banker. This is a film inspired by true events in the lives of two revolutionary businessmen.
The Banker takes us back to the 1950s and 60s and follows the lives of real-life businessmen Bernard Garrett and Joe Morris. These two guys come up with this risky and pretty audacious business plan to take on the racist establishment of the time. And their goal is to help themselves and other African Americans pursue the American dream. Along with Garrett's wife, the men train a working-class white man to pose as the rich and privileged face of their bank and real estate empire, while Garrett and Morris pose as the company's janitor and chauffeur.
Yeah, well, their company soon becomes wildly successful, but it's not long before the FBI comes after them and threatens everything that these masterminds have built.
The film stars Marvel veterans Anthony Mackie and Samuel L. Jackson. Then we have Nia Long. She plays their niece. And then we also have Nicholas Hoult also stars in this film.
So this comes to us from Apple TV Plus. This is part of their big push in churning out some original content. They're doing a great job. They have some some great stuff out there, so I'm looking forward to seeing this. This was initially supposed to be released back in December, but they shelved it for a little while amid some controversy and allegations from real-life family members of these bankers. And Riley, I think we see that a lot. Anytime you do a based on real-life events or a true story, people come out of the woodwork. I mean, there's a lot of points of view on this history and this story. So the director says, this is their take on the story. And we saw that too with Green Book a couple of years ago, the Best Picture winner. Do you remember that? All
Yes.
these people kind of coming out and saying this isn't right, this isn't accurate, but this is just a creative, one point of view. So I'm looking forward to seeing this, and anytime we can get a little history in there, that's always fun.
The Banker hits the big screen March 6th.
And finally, Pixar Animation Studios releases its newest feature film. Onward comes out to theaters this weekend.
Onward is set in a suburban fantasy world where the magic has disappeared. Two teenage brothers, Ian and Barley Lightfoot, receive a wizard staff as a birthday gift from their late dad, who died before Ian was born and when Barley was too young to remember him. The staff comes with a 24-hour magic spell that's supposed to bring their dad back for one more day, so the boys can meet him. They use the spell, but things go a bit awry, and only part of their dad comes back. So the brothers go on a quest to find a way to resurrect their dad before the 24-hour window is up. The film stars Chris Pratt and Tom Holland as the two elfin brothers, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus plays their mom, with Octavia Spencer, Ali Wong, and Lena Waithe also starring.
Well, this is Pixar's 22nd feature film and its first foray into fantasy and magic. So they had to break out of their comfort zone just a bit. And the team says, too, this is interesting, they were influenced by that Charlize Theron movie, Atomic Blonde. The colors that they use and the different palettes and really stylizing this elfin fantasy world. It's a particular look. So Onward is making history. This is the first Disney Pixar film to have an openly LGBTQ character. Lena Waithe plays Officer Spectre here. And this is written and directed by Dan Scanlon. We know him for being at the helm of Pixar's Cars and Monsters University. This is a very personal film for him, so he channeled his own grief. He lost his dad, he and his brother, when they were really young. So this is kind of a love letter, I think, to that and maybe his dream of finding him again, meeting him again one day. And apparently he didn't share this film with his brother until one of the early premieres. So he worked on this project for a long time.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful surprise for his brother. I didn't plan on actually seeing this film, but after watching the trailer, I know it's something my nieces are gonna want to go see. And so as soon as it hits, on demand or it's on Netflix, I guarantee I will be watching this movie more than anyone else out there. We'll watch it a million times.
You're a secret softie, that's what I think. I think you are. Well, I'm bringing my family to this for sure and bringing a Costco-sized box of Kleenex, I think, for all of us if you'd like some as well. You can see Onward in theaters March 6th.
If you're going to see one movie this weekend, make it The Banker. You can get your tickets at Fandango.
Thanks for watching Real News. We'll see you right here next week.
All right, thank you to Aaron and Riley. Again, that's Real News, keeping us up to date. Trends with Benefits is going to be live at 2:30 p.m. Pacific today as well. But stay tuned, because right here on whatever platform you are watching on, whatever social media channel, stick around, because we're going to close this broadcast out and then we're going to pop right back up with our NASA Mars 2020 rover naming stream. So we're going to be watching that live together. So stick around. Again, hit that subscribe button, that way you get the notification, but it's popping right back up here in about a minute. So we'll be back tomorrow, though, with more Digital Trends Live, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, with another edition of Digital Trends Live.